Well, look what we have here. Well, I told you I'd be coming up with some pretty interesting things to talk about, although I have done a video on the Henning nickel. Alright, the infamous counterfeit nickel that collectors just can't seem to get enough of. And I know what you guys are thinking. Blue Ridge. If counterfeit coins, they should be not even talked about at all as being a collectible item. However, there is something to be said about contemporary counterfeit coins. Okay, contemporary is more or less the time period in which these were reproduced for their unscrupulous gains, I guess. So the Henning nickel certainly fits that bill, okay, and it has provided many years, if not decades, of intrigue. Okay, why does anyone go through all the trouble to counterfeit such a small denomination? Well, let's go ahead and kind of get to the root of the matter, but before we do, keep in mind, go ahead and hit the like button if you like today's content, and subscribe and hit the bell for instant notifications. We're going to be talking throughout the whole month of May of coins that you could find in change today that you could sell for a good deal of money without obligating yourself to get it graded. Okay, it's going to be kind of different this month. There's less emphasis on graded coins. The Henning nickel certainly fits that mold. However, it's a very unique mold because it is a counterfeit, a faked fabrication of, a current existing coin. So kind of give you a little bit of a backstory on the Henning nickel. Okay, these were produced by a counterfeiter by the name of Francis Leroy Henning from New Jersey. So sometime during the mid-50s, he counterfeited a number of various dates. Okay, he had produced his own dies. He even had his own little hallmark on the reverse of the coins, which we'll get to here in a second. This is kind of one of those diagnostic points that you'll keep an eye on with these coins right here. The reason why that Mr. Henning had decided to do nickels is he was previously indicted and arrested and indicted for counterfeiting $5 bills, okay, which during its time in the mid-50s, that was a relatively high denomination, okay. $5 then is probably equivalent to like a $20 bill today, if not higher. So with the rate of inflation, you could obviously see how $5 bills became kind of too much of a bullseye on Mr. Henning's craft, if you can even call it that. So he went ahead and started crafting counterfeit nickels, okay, and apparently it worked at the time. He, made quite a few of them. There are a number of specific dates that he counterfeited, okay. The 1944 obviously is a big one and probably one of the more widely available Henning nickels out there today. So as we all know, the 1944 dated nickel is supposed to be a silver manganese composition alloy with the big large mint mark on the reverse on top of Monticello. Okay, that's pretty much a foregone conclusion. That's the way that the U.S. Mint intended to produce a coin during the World War II era. Alright, so those coins are supposed to look like silver with the big mint mark. So on the Henning version of the nickel, okay, as you can see right here, the counterfeit example, first of all, is missing the mint mark on the reverse. Second of all, it has his hallmark on there, okay? It's actually in the R of pluribus on the reverse. It's going to have kind of like this loop, kind of like a damage to that actual letter on the reverse, and that's what he's going to use for the subsequent dates I'm going to talk about. Now keep in mind, there are examples of the Henning nickel that does not exhibit this loop in the R. Okay, he actually made a few that didn't have that. Alright, so those are going to be a little bit tougher to kind of compare to a regular nickel, especially when you're talking about the other dates. The 1944 is identifiable because, number one, it is nickel in composition. It has that looped R sometimes, most of the time, and it will be missing that mint mark. Okay, if it's missing the mint mark, that's pretty much a conclusion that you do own and you possess a Henning nickel. All right. So the other dates that in question that these were crafted in was the 1939 dated Jefferson Nichols, 1946, 1947, and finally 1953, which is the date before the year they started producing these counterfeit nickels. So the toughest dates are the 46, 47, and 53. All right. Those come up very seldom in auction, and if they do, they sell for a ton of money. All right, the 1939 is the second most common date out of the five that Mr. Henning had counterfeited. Okay, but even still, I have one picture here for you of a coin that sold on eBay just recently for in excess of $300. Okay, first of all, kudos to the seller for even finding and identifying a Hennig nickel in for the 1939 date, but being able to sell it for between $300 and $400 is unheard of for a counterfeit of this era. There are counterfeit coins that were made during the 1800s, those contemporary counterfeits that don't even sell for $200-300. So for a 1939 Hennig to sell for that kind of money it speaks volumes in itself. How much will a 1946 or a 47 or even that 53, which is purported to be the most difficult coin to find as a Hennig? All right, so those coins might even be $500 to $1,000. Okay, they come up few and far between. Now, it is also reported that about 100,000 of the Hennig nickels reached circulation. People to this day are still finding these coins in pocket change and in coin roll hunting. In my lifetime, I have found two 1944 Hennig nickels, where I have subsequently sold them for between $100 and $200. So for a coin that you could find in pocket change, you could monetize real easily off of these coins, which actually have a huge fan following. And that's probably the biggest reason why that these coins sell for a great deal of money, is because you have a number of people that are not opposed to spending, $100, $200, $300, $400 on such a coin that otherwise would be frowned upon because it is a counterfeit. So Hennig had dumped another 200,000 nickels in Copper Creek, New Jersey, okay, which is close to his home. Only 14,000 pieces were ever recovered. Okay, and then another couple 100,000 were rumored to have been dumped in the Schuylkill River. I hope I got that right. And so, he had produced in total about 500,000 specimens. So when Mr. Henning was finally caught, okay, he served 3 years in jail and had to pay a stiff fine of 5 G's, 5 grand. So that's pretty much the whole history of the Henning nickel in a nutshell. But before I let you guys go, I wanted to show you again the images of the 1939 that sold on eBay. While not the best images, these coins are not going to look uncirculated. They're going to look pretty rough. They're going to look like they've seen its day in commerce. They're all well worn. The thing about the Hennig nickels is they all have kind of like this squashy, smushy, soft strike on both the obverse and the reverse. They look like beaters, and the only way that you can tell for sure is to get under a magnifying glass and see exactly if it has that looped R on in pluribus. So that's going to be key. Again, you're not going to want to send this off for grading. It wouldn't make any sense, and I'm not even sure if the graders will certify a Hennig nickel. To this day, I haven't seen one through PCGS or NGC. I think that's a less important part of this whole thing, but just finding one and then deciding whether or not you want to keep it or turn around and sell it is completely up to you. Okay, so here are a few 1944s that sold within the last couple weeks. As you can see, there's one that sold for just under $100. The most recent example sold in excess of $100. The 1944 is again the most common. There are times where you can pick up one of these for about $50 if you're lucky. Again, depending on the overall appearance of such a coin, if it's relatively clean, okay, it's going to command that $100 to $200. There was even one example that sold for about $150 about 2 months ago. So these come up on, I would say, a regular basis, especially that 1944, but because it is the most common date out of the Hennig Counterfeit series. Um, the 1939 again is the second most common, although that's kind of misleading because they don't come up that often. Maybe two or three specimens in a calendar year actually come up to auction. As you can see, this example right here is sold for well over $300. And again, even if you have your reservations about having and believing in counterfeit coins, trust me, there is a secondary market, okay? You shouldn't have to feel bad about selling a contemporary counterfeit, which, by the way, is one of the most important coins in numismatic history, okay? Much like the 1883 Liberty nickel that people were gold plating, and they were dubbed racketeer nickels, okay? They were passing them off as $5 gold half eagles, okay? So it was really easy to do during its time because of a lapse in design by the U.S. Mint. They didn't put 5 cents on there. So that's kind of the more older version of a counterfeit attempt, all right? This one right here, even though it seems like a mute point to even produce 500,000 nickels, he made a little bit of money. But, through it all, his time was done after he had spent his 3 years. As far as I know, didn't produce any other counterfeit coins, although there are rumors that he did go back to it in some other capacity. Not sure how that all worked out. But all in all, this is a pretty neat coin that you guys need to be on the lookout for. They look like regular Joe Schmo nickels, I'll be honest with you. And, they have a huge secondary market. You find one, slap it on eBay, do a traditional 7-day auction, and you're going to come away with, like $50 to $150 for a 44. And you shouldn't have to feel bad about it because, most people that buy them, okay, they want them as being, again, an important part in coinage history. So I want to thank everyone for joining in on this one. It was a really interesting topic, one of which I've done before, but this is more in-depth, and it's a lot of fun. I've found them before, and they do exist out there. People are still finding them to this day. Again, if you like today's content, go ahead and hit the like button, and feel free to share and subscribe. Go ahead and comment below. Let me know what you think about the Henning nickel and what it means to today's coin collecting universe. Come check me out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So you guys take care. You keep hunting. We're discovering together, and I'll see you on the next one.